Welcome to this lecture on the basics of neuroscience. Today, we are diving deep into the peripheral nervous system. If you have ever wondered how your brain manages to move your fingers, digest your food, or feel the warmth of a cup of coffee, you are in the right place. Let us begin our journey into the body's ultimate communication network. To understand the peripheral nervous system, imagine you are the CEO of a massive global company. You sit in your central headquarters, which is your brain and spinal cord, making all the brilliant decisions. But if your phone lines and delivery trucks are broken, you cannot actually run the company. The peripheral nervous system acts as that vast network of cables and messengers. It is the biological wiring running out to your fingertips, toes, and internal organs. Without this intricate wiring system, your brain would be completely trapped in the dark, unable to feel the outside world or command your muscles to move. Now that we understand its role as a communication highway, let us look at what the peripheral nervous system actually is. Formally, it is defined as all the nervous tissue that lies outside the central nervous system. While the central system is just the brain and spinal cord, the peripheral system is primarily composed of bundles of nerve fibers, which we call nerves, and clusters of neuronal cell bodies, known as ganglia. This network is incredibly important because it is our only physical link to the external environment and our own internal organs. Every time you pull your hand from a hot stove, you rely entirely on these structures. Because this network handles so many different tasks, it is broadly divided into two main functional branches. First, we have the somatic nervous system. This branch handles the voluntary control of your body movements through skeletal muscles, and it relays sensory information from your skin and joints back to the brain. In contrast, we have the autonomic nervous system. As the name suggests, this operates automatically, below the level of your consciousness. It regulates vital internal functions, like your heart rate, digestion, and respiratory rate, through its sympathetic, fight or flight, and parasympathetic, rest and digest divisions. Understanding these divisions brings us to an important question. What happens when this wiring gets damaged? Clinically, damage to these peripheral nerves results in a condition called peripheral neuropathy. This can cause numbness, weakness, or even agonizing pain, and is often seen in patients dealing with diabetes or physical trauma. Understanding the peripheral nervous system is absolutely crucial for doctors and neuroscientists. It not only helps them diagnose nerve damage, but it also allows them to design advanced prosthetic limbs that can actually feel, and develop targeted painkillers that block pain signals before they ever reach the brain. Before we move on to the mathematics of nerve signals, let us see this with a concrete visual example. Here we have a schematic of the nervous system. In the center, colored in gray, is the central nervous system, comprising the brain and spinal cord. Notice the blue lines on the left. These represent the sensory, or afferent pathway, carrying signals from the hand up to the brain. On the right, the red lines represent the motor, or efferent pathway, carrying commands from the brain out to the muscle. This beautifully illustrates how the peripheral system acts as a two-way street, constantly bridging the gap between your brain and the physical world. Now that we have visualized the pathways, we must ask, how efficiently do these signals travel? To answer this, neurologists measure the nerve conduction velocity. This is a clinical test that calculates exactly how fast an electrical signal travels through a peripheral nerve. Why does this matter? Because the speed tells us how healthy the nerve's protective coating, called the myelin sheath, really is. If a disease like multiple sclerosis damages this sheath, the signal slows down dangerously, leading to sluggish reflexes. To assess this health mathematically, we use a fundamental physics equation adapted for biology. This brings us to the mathematical representation of nerve conduction. The formula is V equals D divided by T. Conceptually, this simply means that the speed of a nerve signal is the distance it covers divided by the time it took to get there. Let us break down the symbols. The variable V represents the nerve conduction velocity, measured in meters per second. The variable D stands for the physical distance the electrical impulse travels along the nerve, measured in meters. Finally, T represents the time it takes, measured in seconds. If the distance increases while the time remains the same, the velocity must be higher. Conversely, if the nerve is damaged, the time increases, causing the velocity to drop. Now that we have our formula, let us apply it to a real clinical scenario. A neurologist is testing a patient's sciatic nerve. The distance between the stimulation site at the hip and the recording site at the ankle is given as 0.8 meters. The time it takes for the signal to travel this distance is 0.016 seconds. We need to find the velocity to check if the nerve is healthy. We choose our standard velocity formula, V equals D divided by T, because we have distance and time. Substituting our values, we divide 0.8 by 0.016. This gives us a final velocity of 50 meters per second. Since a healthy motor nerve conducts between 40 and 60 meters per second, this nerve is perfectly healthy. Having successfully used the velocity formula, let us look at a different scenario. What if we already know the speed of the nerve, and we want to find out how long a signal takes to reach the brain? We need to rearrange our equation to solve for time. We start with our standard formula, V equals D divided by T. To isolate time, our first mathematical step is to multiply both sides by T, which gives us V times T equals D. Next, we divide both sides by V. This leaves T completely isolated on the left side, giving us the new equation, T equals D divided by V. This simple algebraic derivation allows us to predict sensory delays. Now that we have derived the time equation, let us see this with a concrete example. Imagine you accidentally stub your toe in the dark. The distance from your toe to your lower spinal cord is approximately 1.2 meters. The sensory nerve fibers carrying this dull, aching pain have a very slow conduction velocity of just 2.0 meters per second. We want to find the time delay. Using our rearranged formula, T equals D divided by V, we substitute 1.2 for distance and 2.0 for velocity. Dividing these gives us 0.6 seconds. In neural processing, more than half a second is a massive delay. This perfectly explains why you feel the physical impact of stubbing your toe a brief moment before the agonizing pain actually sets in. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us summarize the most important ideas. First, the peripheral nervous system is the essential communication network that bridges the gap between your brain and the physical world. Second, it is functionally divided into the somatic system for conscious movement and the autonomic system for unconscious vital functions. Third, by measuring the speed of electrical signals using the nerve conduction velocity formula, doctors can mathematically assess the health of this biological wiring. Remember, without the peripheral nervous system, your brain would be entirely isolated. You have now mastered the basics of this incredible biological highway. Great job!